Do you guys ever just get fussy? Just fussy. You know, everybody gets that grumpy version of you, you know, that version that is not friendly, that's short, that's, you know, everything that's going on, they have something derogatory or negative to say about it, you know? I'll tell you what, that is not a flattering feature at all. So, I don't know. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I don't want to be the person that takes the air out of the room with talking about my problems. Like, I don't want to be that. And so, and I have been just exactly that for like the last 2 or 3 days. Just a curmudgeon, you know, about everything. And no, I don't do that when I'm at work, for heaven's sakes. But then when I get home, I just will vomit all of that out, you know? And it's like, really? Is there any value to that? So, yeah, I came home last night and I guess everything that I had not said or not been able to express throughout the day decided to come out in the evening. And thank goodness I didn't point it towards anybody. I didn't make it seem like it was their problem. But I was fussy about all of the things that I had an opinion on, you know. And when I laid down last night, I thought, really? That wasn't very helpful. That wasn't, like, why would you bring all that home and dump it on somebody? Really? Like, I wouldn't necessarily want somebody doing that to me. I mean, certainly, if you've had a challenging day and you need to come home and vent, please do that. But, you know, I think those need to be few and far between because, yeah, there's nothing about that that's helpful to a relationship at all. But, you know, but period. Is it helpful? Period? Like, I met this little lady the other day. I don't know where I was at the nail salon. And she had a problem for every solution. No matter what you said, she had something negative to say. Regardless of how good it was or how vague it was or how specific it was, regardless, she was determined to be fussy. Just her. So, you know, and that's not fun to engage with. We're all dealing with something. We're all feel that way from time to time. My prayer, my hope, my dream is that one day I even quit feeling those feelings, you know, that I can have enough mercy and grace and kindness to offer up to everyone that I don't feel the need to be that. But today I'm not there. So what I'm working on currently is there's no need in verbalizing all of that. There is no need in just putting negativity out into the world for no reason. Now, if you've got something to say, a problem that could be solved or be worked on, certainly bring it to the table. Anybody that's willing to help you, I think that's a blessing from God. But to just fuss for no reason, like you're fussing with no desire to find a solution, with no end game, you're just venting, well, go talk to the trees or something. Like, I don't know, just to get all of that out is probably not ideal to do to whoever you've chosen as your mate. And I get it, it's gonna happen, of course, because we're humans, right? But I think when we can keep that to a minimum, you know, you've got enough to work on in your own life. You could bring home the joys of your day instead of the frustrations of your day. What was the funniest part? What was the best part? What was the part you just couldn't believe, you know? The most surprising part. Like, there's a lot of parts of your day you could share with your family that don't have to be just the absolute bottom of the barrel. The parts you hated the worst, now you're going to come home and share those. That makes me crazy at myself. Like, why in the world would anybody do that? Well, I don't know, but I do it sometimes, and it makes me crazy when other people do it, for sure, and it double makes me crazy when I'm the one doing it. I kind of just am that personality to bring the sunshine, to be the one that says, yeah, but what about this? And look at the upside, and, try to find 1,000 positives in the stack of negatives, but once in a while I'm not that. And I can't imagine that God finds my behavior when I'm just spewing negativity out into the world for no benefit to me or anybody else, that he's thinking, man, that's super helpful, So I guess the first part is being aware that you're doing it. And man, if I've become completely aware of the fact that I did it and the lack of benefit. So, but I'm real grateful for clarity this morning. I'm grateful that I see it a different way today. I'm grateful that God lets me see the value in updating my behavior and the effects that would have on me and those around me. I'm grateful that I don't have to stay in the same place and just stay fussy. I feel confident that's going to help me come home with less fussy days because I'm going to feel more intentional about it. Does that mean it's not going to happen? Lord, no. But we can still be mindful and be aware of what we're hoping to share and what we're hoping to bring to the experience, and what bring the attitude of Jesus. That sounds so trite and like such a bunch of mess, but if you can have 2 seconds to think about that, not you, me, if I can have 2 seconds to give that a little bit of thought, man, the value in that is just, I don't even know that we can put a value on it. It is so valuable it's just extremely valuable. And so, do I think it's helpful to criticize ourselves for me coming home last night and doing that? No, I don't think beating ourselves up for anything is the right way to motivate ourselves to move forward differently. I think the value is understanding that there's a better way, a more useful way, and it doesn't mean that right or wrong. It just means, what are you hoping to bring to the experience? Are you just wanting to bring frustration and aggravation and complaining and to the situation? Like, whatever the situation, if it's work, if it's home, if it's school, if it's church, if it's the tea party, the basketball game, like, it doesn't matter what the activity is. It's not like any of us are excited for the person that shows up that does that. We're not like, oh yay, whoever's here, we get to listen to them bitch about everything in the world. Come on. There are so many things to be thankful for, and so many good things, even in the yucky. My mama used to tell us a funny story about her mother. She said she was just so incredibly positive. She was joyful and hopeful and always thought things were going to be better. And so the kids used to always tell their grandmother things and say, Grandma, you'll never believe, blah, 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 blah. And she'd say, well, it could always be worse, And so no matter what they said to her, no matter what they did, the craziness of the story, she would always respond, well, it could always be worse. And so the kids conjured up this little plan that they were going to come up with a story that was so awful that Grandma could not possibly say, well, it could always be worse. So they came in yelling and screaming, Mom, you're never going to believe what happened. Oh my God. And she's like, oh my Lord, what happened? And they said, we were out in the garden and the devil came up out of the ground and grabbed Grandpa and ran off with him. And she said, oh my goodness. She said, well, thank God the devil didn't make Grandpa carry him. You know, so that was the attitude of my mother as well. No matter how bad the situation was, my mother could always find the upside. And man, we found ourselves in some pretty precarious situations over our little lives together, and I can tell you 1,000 of them because they're so funny. But she never lost hope, man, no matter how bad the situation was. We were out in a flat bottom boat in the middle of the night with my dad, frog gigging, for heaven's sakes. And that'll tell you a little bit about how country I am in case the voice didn't tip you off. And it came, I'm talking about a storm that you cannot imagine, like the skies just opened up. And conveniently, we also ran out of gas at the same time. And on top of that, our running lights didn't work or were dead, or I don't know what the problem was, but they were not effective at all. So we had ourselves quite a little situation. The boat was filling up with water. We didn't know where we were going. It was completely pitch black. So we were trying to go by flashlight to understand what a whole lot of lake that looks exactly the same. You know what I'm saying? It was a mess. Well, my sweet mother managed to get Walmart bags, thank you Walmart, plastic bags, and was dipping water out of the boat. And that is what she did until we made it to shore. She and my brother and I all did the same thing, as my dad was using a trolling motor to try to get us back to the shore. So I guess you hear me sitting here talking, so we definitely made it back. But my mother never complained. She never, decided to tell my dad how stupid he was for having us out there at this god-awful hour, and why didn't he check the weather, and she didn't do any of that. She just got busy working on the problem. And what a blessing that was. But I could tell you 1,000 more stories just like that. And out here I'll give you one more. My mother had a stroke about maybe, I don't know the time frame, 10 or 15 years before. She lived maybe 15 years after she had a stroke. And it was pretty devastating. For absolute sure, it was devastating. For her and for our family, it was devastating. And my mother did not handle that well in the beginning, as you might imagine. It was pretty traumatic. But her faith and love in God is way stronger than mine is, and she eventually, with the help of God, got out of that bed and decided that she was going to get better. And that was a long, arduous process, and she didn't recover the majority of her mobility, her vision. So she struggled. But in the midst of that, my mother still looked for the upside. And she would say things like, well, she called it her stroke of luck. She said, I was leading my entire family straight to hell, knowing better. And now instead of filling up nightclubs, we fill up church pews. And she was very proud of that. And if it cost her her ability to work, her ability to have a relationship, her ability to walk, talk, see, hear, think, if it cost her all of that to not lead her family straight to hell, she was okay with that. And she didn't complain about it. Now, certainly it was hard, it was sad, it was frustrating, it was all of the things that you can imagine that it would be for her. But she never complained. She never complained. Now, she may tell you what she was suffering from, but she didn't just complain. And it was an amazing thing to watch, because by the time she passed away, she couldn't lift her head up off of the pillow. She couldn't take a drink of water. She couldn't do anything at all. She couldn't roll over in the bed. She could literally not pick her leg up. She could do nothing by herself. And she still did not complain. And that was just by the grace of God and her relationship with God. So that's what I aspire to. I'm clearly not there today. And if you're not there today, give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. My mother said when she was on her deathbed, she said, baby, don't ever be hard on yourself while you're learning lessons. She said, as long as you're learning lessons, that means you're alive and you're getting better. So it didn't matter that she was laying on her deathbed. She was still learning how to be tolerant of what her circumstances, learning to carry the cross that she had to bear, learning to still be a disciple even in that position. She continued down the path regardless. And so, if you're struggling like I'm struggling, don't give up. Don't give up. The stronger your relationship gets with God, the stronger you're going to be in every single area of your life. And I am evidence of that all over the place. Now, I have deficiencies as long as my legs. And you've not seen me standing up, but they're pretty long. And it's okay. Everything that is good in me is because of the love and grace of God. And everything that is not good in me, He is actively working on. And He's willing to do it for you too. And He does it without stealing your dignity, without punishing you. Now, that doesn't mean you don't get consequences, because Lord help us, we do. But He never gives a consequence that doesn't have a purpose. He's not just trying to hurt you or just be mean to you or just get you back. He always just wants you to be better. So regardless of how far down you are today or how far up you are today, don't forget to rely on the Lord. He's there for you every single time. And I hope you have a fabulous day and push for excellence everywhere you go.